Welcome back to Unqualified Critics. David here. We did a live stream a few hours ago on the Arcade1UP announcements. Glenn from Glenn's Retro Show was kind enough to join us, and the recording didn't turn out great. Honestly, the first 5 minutes were reverbing, and if I tried to delete that within YouTube's editing system, I lost all the chat info and whatever. So I figured it'd be better just to do a fresh video. But thank you so much to everyone who came up. We had about 200 viewers. And I'm very flattered by that, honestly. That may be small numbers to some folks, but I've never done a live stream before. It was a huge learning experience, and I learned a lot, so I look forward to doing it again. I appreciate that you joined, and next time I'll actually promote it ahead of time. Instead of this time, I just sprung it on everyone last minute. It was kind of a last-minute decision, but thanks for joining. So, all right, so for this video, I wanted to break down all the news from the Arcade1UP announcement. The video, currently, I'm not able to find the video. I watched it live, but I'm not seeing it in the IGN recorded stream. So if anyone has a link to that, let me know below. Also, John D was on Retro Ralph's show after my live stream around 8 p.m. tonight. He came on and shared some more information because the IGN announcement, it was thin. There wasn't a whole lot of time dedicated. I imagine these companies like Arcade1UP have to pay money to IGN to be featured. I don't know that for sure, but that's my guess. So I understand that that's a small announcement. They're dealing with some major competition when it comes to getting airtime there. And props to them for having a big unveil, because I'm going to have some criticisms here, of course, but overall, these products are pretty compelling. And Arcade1UP has shown again, they really are the king of licensing in the home arcade space. Pretty cool stuff. First up, there was a small bit of general news that John D broke. We know that Arcade1UP is going to start selling side panels on their website. Here's the news, that they are looking at selling alternate artwork side panels. So if you have a game cabinet and there were different variants in the real arcades, they might sell those different variants and you could switch things out. I think that's pretty cool. All right, next, let's get up to the list of games and break down the news, and I'll tell you kind of what I think of each one so far. Although, of course, none of these are out yet, and the real test will be when these are launched. Big Buck Hunter Pro. Might be controversial. This is actually what I've thought about this, and I'm really the most excited about this cabinet over all the others. And here's the thing, I'm not much of a Buck player. I've played it real casually in bars and stuff. I respect it as a game. It's challenging. It demands replay so that you get better at it, and that's one of the things that makes for a great arcade game. Does this scratch the itch that you might have for like a Area 51 or Lethal Enforcers or T2 or just whatever, on and on for a gun cab? No, it probably doesn't. But listen, this is a landmark cabinet, I believe. It has all the markings of a perfectly executed Arcade1UP cab, and they've done it before. The Marvel cabinet was near perfect if you got the limited edition. The Star Wars cabinet is basically perfect in my opinion, and the Golden Tee is basically perfect. I can't name much more beyond that they didn't have some serious design compromises on, but those cabinets I regard as pretty much perfect. Buck Hunter to me looks like this is going to be one of those perfect cabs. It's got the custom design cabinet, extremely customized. This looks radically different from the basic template Arcade1UP design. This is also the first time Arcade1UP has licensed a Raw Thrills cabinet. Now, Raw Thrills is a company with a very deep talent bench that works for and owns that company. But they're sort of the modern incarnation of the ultimate arcade machine maker. They make a lot of the modern games you play in a Dave & Buster's. You may or may not like that style of game, but Raw Thrills is the best at what they do, and it's exciting that Arcade1UP is now working with them. So the look of the cabinet is awesome. The look of the rifles is very good. This is a vast improvement over the leaked images from pre-CES, which I'll put up on the screen. Now, this was revealed by John D in the Ralph stream. They are using Sinden light gun technology. To be honest, I'm not super up on the latest of light gun tech for emulation, but we all know that LCD light gun tech is not good. It's expensive. It's not super accurate. It requires a sensor bar. Think about like a Wii remote. It may need recalibrated often. The Sinden light gun actually operates, in my understanding, and Ralph did a good job explaining this, more similarly to how the old school CRT light guns work, which is the gun reads the screen to know where it is. It doesn't read a light bar. It's not triangulating its position. It's directly reading the screen. There's an image, I guess, that moves around on the screen that the human eye does not notice, but that the light gun is picking up to know exactly where it is shooting. Cutting edge technology. I've never played it. I hear it's top notch. And ARCADE1UP has a partnership now with Sinden, and they plan to use this for other shooting cabinets. In John D's words, this is only the beginning, so they're going to come with some real heat here in the future. So for those of you who are disappointed by Buck and you were hoping for a different cabinet, know that this stuff has to be coming. They know there's demand there. Buck Hunter Pro will stand slightly taller than the other ARCADE1UP cabinets given the plastic piece or the molding that sits on the top, but it's apparently still 3/4 scale to the original. It looks very similar to the original cab. Included games are Big Buck Hunter Pro, Big Buck Safari, Big Buck Hunter Pro Open Season, and Big Buck Safari Outback. All right, next up is X-Men versus Street Fighter. There was some confusion, so on my live stream there were a few questions. Are there two different cabinets? So someone asked John D that, and the answer is this. There is an alternate artwork version with the Marvel vs. Capcom artwork instead of the X-Men Street Fighter. That's what they showed on their IGN stream. They showed both, I guess, or they showed one and then the other was on their website. But either way, there are two variants here. That is very real. The X-Men vs. Street Fighter, which is on their website now, is going to be the first cabinet to drop. Allegedly, the Marvel vs. Cabinet variant that is coming later, and they both have Marvel vs. Capcom, but the MvC artwork variant that's coming later allegedly will also have Marvel superheroes. Many of us already own that cabinet with a dedicated Marvel cab, so whether or not that moves the needle on you to wait, I don't know. MvC artwork is iconic, but they did a really good remix of the original X-Men Street Fighter artwork, and I think that cabinet as it stands, the first one that's coming out, looks fire. That's my preferred artwork of the two. Included games for the X-Men Street Fighter cabinet, the initial one to drop. X-Men Children of the Atom, which we already get on the Marvel Superheroes cab. X-Men vs. Street Fighter, which is new, of course. Marvel vs. Capcom 1. No, we're not getting Marvel vs. Capcom 2. We're still in the CPS2 board era. And X-Men Mutant Apocalypse. Now, here's the deal with that. X-Men Mutant Apocalypse is a Super Nintendo game. A lot of the people in my chat for my stream were saying, what the heck, why are they throwing in a Super Nintendo game? I actually did not believe it, so apology to all of you. You guys were right. This is an SNES game. I just didn't believe it because to date, ARCADE1UP has never done anything other than an arcade ROM. That's been a big part of their history. This is the first time they're doing it, and it's a little controversial. John represents this as an important part of the overall story that these fighting games do represent, and he's right. But other folks will say, well, I don't want a console game in my arcade, so it's up to you. It's an extra game. Yes, you can ignore it. I'm not really too motivated by it one way or the other. I've never played it, so I guess I look forward to trying it out. Is what it is. If you don't like it, I guess don't play it. A little bit goofy, but not a big deal at the end of the day. X-Men vs. Street Fighter is being play tested by Justin Wong, so he's a high-profile fighting game player. And John also mentioned some other pro players that are play testing. That's good news, and I'm sure they're paying these people to do that, so that's an investment, and that's an investment to make sure for all of us that finally get these cabinets, get to play them, that we're getting as close to an arcade experience as possible. That's awesome. Hats off to ARCADE1UP for doing that. There will be two stools ultimately announced, if I think I heard correctly, a Capcom one and an X-Men one. That way you truly get that Capcom or Street Fighter versus X-Men vibe, and you could have two stools next to each other. It's a good idea. Got to sell that merch. Someone has asked, will Wi-Fi be included? And John's answer was kind of the political, may or may not, you'll have to check back for that announcement. But he implied with a wink and a nod that yes, this stuff probably is going to have Wi-Fi. And I'll come back to this later, but we found out that the Wi-Fi infrastructure or the online play infrastructure for NBA Jam is designed to be extended to other cabinets, so it probably is coming. There will be no special edition of X-Men vs. Street Fighter with the legitimate sandwalk controls, but as with Pac Man, Frogger, etc., there will be different levels of cabinet for different retailers. Now, John defended not having sandwall parts by saying the clones they have are super good, and I'll admit that increasingly their controls are getting better. To this date, nothing feels to me exactly like my sandwall controls that are in my Black Series cabinet with the joystick for Street Fighter and my Marvel cabinet. So I remain kind of disappointed by that. I wish, that's the one thing I wish they would continue to do, is give us limited editions or whatever, higher tier editions with the real controls. Even if you got it exact, there are always going to be purists that want the real deal, and it'd be nice if they did that, and we're not getting that with the X-Men Street Fighter. All right, moving on. The Marvel Pinball. This comes with a physical plunger. I thought the other cabinets came with a push button in place of a plunger to launch the ball. Apparently that's what they showed on Attack from Mars, but Glenn tells me that the original Attack from Mars had a push button anyway, so maybe I'm wrong and this is actually more authentic than I ever imagined. Either way, the Marvel Pinball will have a physical plunger. Now, a lot of people have wanted to know, they've announced Marvel now, it's on their website, but Star Wars and Attack from Mars are not on their website. What is the release schedule? Well, they're all three going to launch at the same time. They're going to ship from China, so not when you get them, but when they ship from the manufacturer. Late August, early September, mid-September, something like that, for these pinball cabs. That's huge news. These are coming actually pretty soon. And the $499 price point is confirmed. I'm not surprised by that. At Games has talked about a $599 cabinet that'll play a lot of games. $499 is really where I think ARCADE1UP has to be for a smaller table. But speaking of At Games, John D threw some shade on that model, and maybe with good reason. His take was, look, we have partnered with Zen Studios so that their software is customized to perfectly work with our hardware. A lot of people who've played Pinball FX on Android, they assume that's going to be exactly what they get on the cabinet. I've said this before in my videos. Don't assume that's true. There's a deep partnership here. There's a lot of money that's going to be flowing into Zen from this product line, I'm sure. I wouldn't write off custom work being done for this to be emulated on this specific set of hardware, and it turns out that is in fact exactly the truth. So John's point was, well, if you're just going to stream Pinball FX to your game, say with the BYOG feature on the Legends Ultimate, if you're just going to stream that to your pinball table, not everything's going to work perfectly. It won't mesh perfectly with the DMD. It's not going to mesh perfectly with the solenoids and all of that. That's an interesting point, and it does remain to be seen if the At Games Pinball is going to play truly as seamlessly or anywhere even close to it as the ARCADE1UP. Both products, I think, are going to have their gives and their takes. Back to the Marvel Pinball, and this is the same, I think, for all the pinball machines. There is a confirmed accelerometer now for real tilt. It's been talked about before that maybe, maybe not. Now we know we're getting it. The back box screen is 7 to 8 inches, final size to be determined. That is smaller than the At Games Legends. But overall, these cabinets are looking really good, and I'm excited about the custom artwork for different tables. I could see having a few different tables lined up, just like us wanting to come into our basement and we see a game room. We now can have a bunch of different pinballs laid out. I'm honestly pretty excited for both this and the Legends Pinball. Next up, Ms Pac Man. Everybody said it was impossible, and I was even starting to buy into that and thinking, yeah, maybe this is impossible. It turns out there's a nuance in the licensing that invokes different rights if it's a coin-operated machine versus not a coin-operated machine. But somehow, some way, they have achieved the rights for Ms Pac Man from Namco, and ARCADE1UP says they have a great relationship with them. Again, throwing shade on At Games because At Games and Namco had a lawsuit. ARCADE1UP has no such baggage. We get Ms Pac Man, Galaxian, Pac-Mania, and Pac-Man Plus. Honestly, guys, I love how this cabinet looks. I love that we're getting Ms Pac Man. I do not love the games list. Galaxian is a 2-way joystick game. These are 4-way joystick games. Can you mix the two? Sure, yeah, you can. The Class of 82 Namco cabinet from back in the day, the real arcade machine, that combined Galaga with Ms Pac Man, 4-way and 2-way, that worked. Nobody complained. So I'm not saying this is crazy. I'm just saying it's not necessarily what I would pick. Now, you could argue it makes sense this has Galaxian because maybe this is really a companion cabinet to the Pac-Man 40th, which has Galaga. I would like to see Dig Dug, which brings me to my next point. There will be another Ms. Pac Man version with a different games on it than we saw today, but that has not yet been announced. Apparently, it is retailer specific, and they're still working with that retailer to determine what those games should be. Give us Dig Dug, guys. I'm telling you, Ms. Pac Man and a Dig Dug cabinet. All is forgiven that you did Pac-Man 40th and Ms. Pac Man back to back. I could care less. I would buy that cabinet real quick. All right, next up, there was some news from John D on the Retro Ralph stream about NBA Jam. Now, we already know they plan to add more players if they can over Wi-Fi updates, but now we know exactly who the missing players will be, and I'll go ahead and put that up on screen. Again, this is from the Retro Ralph John D interview, so credit there. So I don't think that's that big of a deal. They were never going to get 100% buy-in from all the different stakeholders in the roster list. I can live with that. I'm not a big basketball fan. I just like NBA Jam for the play mechanics. I might be an outlier. I could care less. These could be generic players. Don't care. Just want to play the game. So, hats off to them for going the extra mile, getting as many players as they can. They're going to keep working on getting more players. Awesome for those of you that are into that. But the big thing from NBA Jam, and I hinted at it earlier, is that the infrastructure that has been developed for online play is designed to be used for other games in the future. Are they going to want to extend that and add more games to it and make this a big differentiator for ARCADE1UP? I'd bet some serious money that they do plan to do that, and John D implied as much. That's all the news I have from the John interview and the IGN announcement. Thank you so much for watching. Check out the full interview with Retro Ralph stream. Next time I stream myself, I won't goof it up in the very beginning with that weird reverb. I now know how to avoid that. But again, thanks for the 200 of you that tuned in live and we hung out together. Appreciate it. Next time I'll give you guys a heads up when I'm going to go live, and we can all schedule accordingly, and we'll talk to you then. Take care, guys.
Dripping lights paint the sky.